Are you afraid of an audit? The IRS sent me a letter telling me I owe $2,000 back for 2006. I don't think I owe any more money than I paid already, but I don't want to have problems with the IRS. Should I just pay them the $2,000? It would take money away from me that I really need for the family, but if I'm audited, I'm afraid I might owe even more money. What should this fellow do?
Well, this taxpayer shouldn't pay the $2,000 right away if he doesn't feel like he owes it. I get this kind of question an awful lot. Taxpayers who get bills from the IRS and they think they filed their returns and full paid the tax. What may have happened here is one of a variety of scenarios. One, there may have been a mistake on his tax return, and then the IRS automatically fixes those mathematical mistakes and sends a bill out. The other is that the taxpayer may have omitted some sort of income. The taxpayer may have received a 1099 or been issued a 1099 but never received it, but the IRS got a copy of the 1099 and then asserted additional tax based upon this additional income. However, contesting this $2,000 doesn't necessarily mean the taxpayer will get audited, and there frankly is no relationship between owing $2,000 in tax you don't believe you owe and getting audited. The way the IRS chooses to audit people is they look to see if there's high risk items on a tax return. For example, if this taxpayer uses a huge amount of, let's say, car and truck expense or entertainment expense or a very large charitable deduction or a health expense, that might draw an audit. In order for this taxpayer to figure out whether this tax liability is actually due or not, what this taxpayer needs to do is call the IRS and ask for his record of account for the year 2006 and his income transcript. The income transcript will show all the income the IRS believes was reported on this taxpayer. That would be all the W-2 and 1099 information. And the record of account will show what the taxpayer showed was filed on his tax return, as well as how the additional $2,000 was calculated. So between those two documents, it's pretty clear and pretty plain English to determine whether this $2,000 is actually owed and how it was assessed by the IRS. And this taxpayer doesn't need to worry about an audit because they have a $2,000 tax liability. Audits aren't gauged or determined by the fact that there's a small amount due for a previous year.
So you know, Sam, talking about that 1099 stuff, I've said before, I had a problem one year where I didn't get the 1099, doing a little outside job as a freelancer, but the IRS did. Now, in a deal like this, if they tell me I owe money and I say I don't think I do, I can get those forms and I can find out what they're showing as income. And there's a chance there's an error there somewhere.
Absolutely. There's errors rather frequently, to be honest. And that's kind of unusual to me because this is a largely automated, computerized system. However, what I find happens more often than not is that when people work for other people that they have relationships with as an independent contractor, oftentimes the person who should be issuing the 1099 to their friend, their independent contractor, feels bad in doing so, but they know that they're obligated to do so or send it to the IRS, or their accountant is. So their accountants oftentimes send the 1099s to the IRS, but oftentimes those 1099s don't make it into the hands of the independent contractors, and the independent contractors don't find out about that additional purported income until they receive a collection notice or a bill or some sort of additional assessment notice. The type of notice that you would have gotten, True, or somebody else who would have gotten, if they had not reported 1099 income, is a notice called a CP2000. And a CP2000 comes via certified mail to the taxpayer, and basically it's the IRS's notice saying, look, there's an additional 1099 of additional income that you haven't reported on your return. If you agree with this, go ahead and sign off, send it back, and send us the money, or don't send us the money, we'll send you a bill. If you disagree with it, then you can actually petition tax court and fight the fact that you shouldn't have received this 1099 or you never did receive this 1099 income.
Now, Sam, okay, here's a question for you. This is from me. Does somebody I do outside work for, they pay me $1,000, pick a number, are they obligated to send me the 1099 if they send the 1099 to the IRS, or are they?
The answer is yes. They're obligated to send you the 1099, absolutely. The law states that they're supposed to send you the 1099 and send a copy to the IRS. There's a matching process here. The IRS wants to match all the 1099s that are sent out to independent contractors with all the deductions that are being taken off of tax returns for business expenses.
Does it matter if I can go to the IRS and say I didn't get this, or am I still going to pay?
Well, yeah, even if you didn't receive a 1099, you still receive the income, you have to pay tax on the income. Just because you didn't receive the 1099 doesn't relieve you of the obligation to pay tax on that income.
You got the money, but not the piece of paper to say you got the money. You know, and that's a deal. You're kind of stuck. on that income, and you're going to have to deal with it sooner or later. I'm wondering, on a small amount like that, say $2,000, like this person's got, and then go to the IRS and say, whoa, I didn't even know about this income, I swear. Can I work out a deal or payment or something?
Well, there's probably not a deal to work out. They're not going to reduce the tax liability because you were unaware that you had more income than you actually reported on your tax return. However, if you can't afford to pay the $2,000, you can absolutely work out an installment arrangement with the IRS. And the IRS is set up to actually work out installment arrangements, especially on these much smaller amounts. So it shouldn't raise any kind of anxiety about the fact that you haven't full paid your taxes, and it shouldn't raise any anxiety like this taxpayer has that there's going to be an oncoming audit because they haven't reported all of their income in 2006.